What is up, everybody? I'm your host, Rob Younts, and thank you for tuning back into the Canecast Show. If today's your first episode, you are in for a treat. If you've been with us before, we really appreciate you coming back. Either way, today's guest is a total dude. He's a Wake Forest alum and the CEO of his own business at 23 years old. Before we get into that, I'd like to ask a favor of you. We need your help in growing the show. How can you do that? Well, first of all, smash the like button. Whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on your favorite podcast host, give us a like. Smash it. 2, drop us a comment to let us know what you like and don't like about our show. 3, help us grow the community by subscribing. Lets others know that this show is legit. 4, give us a review. Show us a little bit of love there. And 5, share it. Share the episode, share the channel, send this to your friends and enemies who are missing baseball right now. Today's guest is a Canes alum, Logan Harvey. He played catcher for the Canes since he was 15 years old. After an extremely successful baseball playing career at Wake Forest University, Logan is now CEO of his own business, Fan Park App, which provides contactless parking solutions at large events like college football games and state fairs. In this episode, Logan dishes on his journey through the Canes and Wake, as well as a translation of all the skills he learned in baseball to the business world. This is a notebook filler of an episode, so break out a new pen to make sure you have plenty of ink. And here's Logan. Hey, what's up, everybody? Rob Younts here with another awesome episode of Canecast Show. Have a great guest today that I've had the pleasure of knowing since he was about 15 years old. Coached him then. It's actually Dan Gitson. Oh, no, that's not Dan Gitson. That is Logan Harvey. Logan Harvey, how the heck are you, pal?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me on. This is exciting. This is a pretty cool experience. I'm not gonna lie.
That's good, man. I had to get the Dan Gitson thing out earlier. Now everybody that's going to be watching it is going to know. You know, one of the things about Logan, Logan was a catcher at Douglas Freeman High School. He's going to bring us up to speed on his journey here in a few. Went on to play at Wake Forest, and we joked all the time about he was Dan Gitson's son. So, and he's got some great stories around that. But Logan, man, you know, I've known you for a long time. I remember the first time I saw you. Bring everybody up to speed kind of on your, I guess, and I know you're very close to your family, so we can start there with, you know, your baseball career up until you get to the Canes. So bring everybody up to speed on that, man.
Yeah, I mean, I guess should kind of start really right from the beginning. So my dad, Ken Harvey, played baseball in the Dodgers organization after he played at University of Richmond. Kind of some funny stuff about that is that when he was out of baseball and I was kind of growing up, Ken Harvey was a first baseman for the Royals. And my dad was a small second baseman in the Dodgers minor league organization. And I distinctly remember we're going to a friend's house for my sister, and the gate guard was like, "Man, I loved you. Man, I gotta listen to this. Like, can I get your autograph?" And my dad was like, "Yeah, sure, whatever." So he signed it, and he goes, "I'm pretty sure he thinks I was the Royals one." So I'm going up seeing this, and I'm like, what is going on? And finally it kind of put two and together that, oh, okay, that makes sense. So he has been my coach as long as I can remember. I have, you know, the pictures and video of me growing up, you know, been my coach kind of ever since. And what's pretty cool now is he's actually my business partner. So being able to go from not to have just as a dad, but a coach and now a business partner is a great sort of thing that we've kind of been able to continue through. But played at every place under the sun in terms of, you know, Little League, all that sort of stuff. Got up and then kind of joined the Canes when I was 15. Went to a tryout on the recommendation of Jack Gerstenmaier, that I played with at Douglas Freeman, and they were like, "Man, go out, just a dynamic one. Like, go see what it's what. Just basically see where you're at with everybody else." And I remember it was kind of one of those cold days. It was the first one I've ever been a part of. You're dressed in your, you know, Douglas Freeman baseball shirt, and you're kind of looking around. And I think everybody's kind of been there, depending on how old they are. But you kind of go up and you don't know anybody around, and you don't know if you look good or if your shirt's tucked in right, and just kind of floating around. And I remember that So this is tough, but Coach Lowry was throwing BP, literally like the creme de la creme of BP throwers. When I say I didn't hit a ball out of the infield, I'm not even kidding. I was so nervous, so rattled. That was the first time I had been on any sort of like a big stage beyond like Little League. Didn't hit a ball. And I was like, what am I? I was like, this is awful. And I remember coach was like, hey, you're good. Just relax. Like they could tell I was nervous. And at the end, I was like, all right, this is just not ideal. So then part of it was catching and throwing, and threw down pretty well, had a good pop time, was receiving well. I remember Dan Gitson, now the namesake, kind of pulled me aside and he goes, so when are you joining the Canes? What? And he was like, you catch great. He was like, we got a spot for you if you want it. I was like, well, I'm with a team right now. I was like, I can't commit to anything. And he's like, no, we're not asking you to do that. We're not going to pull you across from a team that you're already on. We get that. But when you're ready, know that there's a spot available. So I left that tryout and I was like, what? Like, that's incredible. So I'd heard about the Canes, obviously, when that was back in the orange and, what's it called? Orange and green days before it became Evo.
Got one here, actually.
So being able to see that, like I knew the guys that had played. Stephen Godfrey is an old head in the Canes organization. So Stephen was at Freeman with me. And so it was great to kind of establish that pipeline, but played in the Canes from 15 on, great experience all the way through. Some really great memories, really great stories, quite a few rings, quite a few dog piles. So, kind of the path to that is an interesting one to trace back. It feels like everything kind of led from one to the next, but great kind of overall sort of thing.
I love that you told the tryout story because I was going to bring that up. And Dan told me, I remember Dan telling me about you of, hey, we got a kid from Freeman, really, really good catch and throw. I think he hits better than the tryout. And I was like, being a hitting guy, I'm like, all right, well, how do you do in the tryout? He goes, he didn't get one out of the infield. Like, what? He goes, yeah, he didn't hit a ball out of the infield. He said, I think he even had a swing and miss or two. And I was like, so you think he hits better than that? He goes, yeah, I think he does. And as your career through the Canes, unfolded, that obviously proved true. So I remember watching you, and when Dan says you're a really good catch and throw guy, he's a catching guy, so obviously you trust that really well, but you were even better than expected. The one thing I'll say, you touched on your family, and I love an awesome family. The one thing I'll say about Ken, and make sure you tell him, is I think he has one of the top 5 handshakes I've ever had in my life. Like, he really gets in there. I like it.
I wish you could say you're the first one to say that, but everybody that meets him, like kids my age will meet him and shake his hand. And they're like, what is with that? And it's because that's just what it's not like a power level thing. It's
right.
Just like
he's passionate. Yeah. I love it.
From a young age, you aim for the what's it called? The
that's right.
In there,
yep.
And shake.
Get in there deep, get it firm and shake. He's awesome, man.
So I mean,
he's awesome.
It's been cool, not just the handshake part, I keep reiterating it, but like the relationship that we've been able to have all the way through and have my parents behind me and all this sort of stuff. I'm really, really lucky, really appreciative of, getting to see that, and it's just been a great situation.
And, things that stuck out about your family to me is that, your dad was always, hey, how can he get better? What can he do to improve? What can he do? And it was never, hey, you're playing so-and-so over my son. It was always, what can Logan do to get better? And typically he always let you handle that, if I remember correctly too. But, we had conversations in the hotel. He's like, hey man, Logan did this or did that. And what did you see? I mean, it was always very on a supportive level. Even with us as coaches, it was never him interjecting himself. Even though he had, he has the knowledge and the ability to do so. So that was something that I always appreciated and always loved bumping into Ken. I think we're friends on LinkedIn or something like that. So every now and then I get something from him. So really cool. And again, you graduated what, 2014? Were you 14 grad, 15 grad?
I was 15 of high school.
Yeah, 2015. So, we're talking, gosh, I've known you for 7-8 years now. roughly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You've
I mean,
seen
mom and
that.
dad. Yeah, seen everything. See you
Yeah.
grow. Seen you. Of course, you did have the beard at like 15, didn't you? I mean, you did look
I
like
know.
everybody's dad at 15.
Oh, that's stuck to this day. People will still, and it's, it's not it's endearing, I guess, and I take that kind of as a compliment now that I was the responsible one, the mature one, but it stuck at Wake Forest. It was a Canes thing. It was always just kind of like, no, that was my thing. And I think part of that, honestly, was being a catcher was I was responsible for the pitchers because knowing our guys, how much, they had somebody to rely on was pretty cool. I'm still friends with all of those guys that, I think I call it what, 5 first rounders,
Right,
who
not
gets to
bad.
say that,
I know.
like as a catcher, it's not like, oh, what's your pop time? That's okay, whatever. Like you can kind of mess with that, but oh, who was on your team? Oh, those guys in the MLB? Yeah, him. Like
Right.
pretty cool thing to be able to say.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so that is pretty cool because you guys, were probably or are, as of today, the most successful team we've had that has come through. I mean, you guys dogpiled like every single tournament. I know when I had you at 16, we were that was the first 16 and under, or no, not the first 16 and under, but I think it was our third or fourth 16 and under that we won. My first one. That team was really good, man. We did some really cool things, and the great part is that you guys had great personalities too, and it wasn't you guys had the mentality we're going to go out and just beat you. It's not let's play around, let's kind of tease them. It was we step on the field, we're going to absolutely punch you in the nose, and if you get up, we're going to let you maybe get up for a second, and we're just going to pummel you again. Really, really cool to see that. And you set the tone for that. You and LT and Danny and those guys, you behind the plate because we knew we could call anything. Logan felt super comfortable. Logan Allen felt super comfortable being able to throw a breaking ball, back foot breaking ball with a runner on third base because he knew it would never get by you. Where did that come from? Where did that, you really took pride in your defense and where did that come from growing up and how did that evolve? How did you, catching's not easy when you're younger, right? I mean, you got to want to do it. Where did that come from for you?
I think a lot of it, quite honestly, I owe a lot to my coaches. So, what started, I was a second baseman growing up, right up until I was probably 12 or 13-ish. That was kind of one of my main positions. I played, I was behind the plate quite often, but that was more just because that was in that time where like who was scared of the ball least.
Right.
And quite honestly, I got into catching because my cousin was a catcher and my grandmother gave me an old Easton Black Magic mitt when I was like 7 years old.
Old Black Magic.
I wanted to be behind the plate because I thought the gear was cool. And so
Yeah.
the gear thing is stuck with me. I'm infatuated with everything like as it goes through. So, started out just as a second baseman. So I started getting like the footwork down. My dad was a second baseman. So, just the footwork around second base is there's parallels between that and behind the plate, I think. Being able to play laterally and be quick that way and be efficient in your movements and really kind of taking the steps that actually, make you're not just go out and turn a double play. You really have to take the steps quite literally step by step and work on it and adjust to, a third throw coming from third, either coming across the bag or a flip coming from shortstop, you may go behind. So there's parallels that way. And then kind of as I got older, I had a great catching coach with Coach Greg, what's his name? Bull Heller at RBA. Bull was actually pretty close with Coach Walt too. So that was kind of something that was going on. In high school, I had a great coach. What's his name? We called each other Guy. Tyler LeClaire. He was at IYG baseball. And so he was my catching coach. And so, we were doing duck walks down the first baseline like every day. It was block and recover, block and recover, block and recover. And so building kind of that foundation for when I joined the Canes is, this is what I'm really good at, and I'm going to stick with this. This is my ticket. It was a, you kind of touched on my dad saying about what is it going to, how can Logan improve? because he wasn't a catcher, it was kind of on me to learn this sort of stuff and back up why I'm doing it and have a reason. He used to coach. He ran a old school in the 80s called Virginia School of Baseball when he was a minor leaguer. And one of his like teaching things was he'd tell you something and then ask you to tell it back to him, but not in the same words, to really understand, okay, are you just taking in information or are you actually understanding it and able to push it back? So that became kind of some standard of, okay, well, when you throw it a second, what do your feet do? Okay, right foot replaces. What does that mean? Okay, well, so you started to get in kind of the nitty gritty of it, and then being able to build on that foundation as I got older and got better, that, we actually had a kind of a come to Jesus moment, quite honestly, where he was like, when I committed, he was like, you wouldn't quite honestly be here if you were still middle infield, or, your ticket is behind the plate. And so really being able to kind of take that in and be like, no, that's why. And especially going out to the field, I had the confidence that I was better than every other catcher there. Now, whether I was or not, you still have to have that mindset. And I don't believe that's cocky. I don't believe that's anything like that. But if you're not going out there and you think, I'm better than that guy, it was a little competition, friendly competition. I'm still friends with a whole bunch of guys we played against. ACC baseball is pretty much like a brotherhood. Even in Canes, I still friends with a bunch of guys on Facebook that I played against because we were catchers, and you're up at the plate and what's up, catch, kind of tap on the leg guard, that sort of thing. But really just kind of inspiring that confidence and getting that thing that kind of pushed it forward, that was my ticket. Then you can really kind of take it in. And that's not to say that hitting is by no means important, but that I wasn't on the team to do that. As Dan said, I'm a catch and throw guy. That's been my thing is the whole way through. Some people may take that as a slight, but I didn't, because I knew I was one of the best catch and throw guys out there. And so being able to have that sort of skill set that was an X factor for teams, I think was really kind of what made me proud. I mean, who was it? When we were in not Fort Myers, what's the other one down in Florida? Jupiter.
Yeah.
Jupiter, 17U, like big game. And Jeff still tells this story about, it was like bottom of the sixth, like bases loaded, and I backpicked a guy on second base, like out of the blue, like got out of the inning. And he still told me that. And that was like 3 years after I had played. And so hearing that was like, okay, like, yeah, that's pretty cool. Like, I guess no big deal. Yeah. So then being able to do that. And then now I've actually been to the point where I'm helping, kind of coming back and coaching a little bit. I'm still in Winston-Salem right now. So I'll go help out with kids coming up with catching and being able to push it on to them, because I kind of had this experience and I enjoy that kind of passing on of knowledge. It's kind of my way of giving back. But, it's been a road of, I think the things you learn in catching, that's the toughest place. How are your knees? How's all that sort of stuff? I kind of embraced it of, I'm going to be like the bulldog behind the plate that's going to go to bat for my pitchers, and be that one that can block anything, and just not the skill side, but also the mentality of that's what I'm here to do, and I'm going to do it. Because if I don't, then what else is there?
Right. Well, and the interesting part is that, now people are valuing catchers, catch guys, receiving guys even more, talking about how, catcher efficiency and how many strike balls that they're turning into strikes and things like that. I can remember, numerous times when that happened. And I think one of the reasons why you and I connected so well is because you're a very intelligent guy. You speak, you're very articulate. You are smart to know, not just in a baseball sense, but and again, we'll get to what you're doing now, because that kind of speaks to your entrepreneurship, your intelligence, and and the great joke about catchers is the gears, the tools of ignorance, but that obviously doesn't apply to you. And most catchers, realistically, if you look at it, most of the best managers are catchers. I always joke around with pitchers that they're not necessarily the best coaches because they don't know what infielders do. They don't know where me as a shortstop is supposed to be, except if it's a pickoff. Yeah. You as a catcher, you're right. You're the responsible one. You're directing everybody, and that's the role you've always played. Yeah. And you played it well because you fit into that role. There were several times, we talked about your defense, but I remember 16U. Was it the walk-off hit against Skater Ball that you hit a double over the center fielder's head, or was it? I think it was to get the rally started or something like that.
Yeah.
I think it was. I think it was to tie the game up, and then Stevie came up next and either won it or Stevie was in front of you and hit the tying double, and then you scored him from second base or something like that. But
yeah,
I think they thought they were going to get you out.
Yeah,
and I knew you were going to get a hit.
So my thing that I think now looking back on it is really interesting to note is, you know, my batting average was never the highest on the team. That was not my thing. I never hit the most home runs, but I, you know, for lack of a better word, I had a clutch gene, and it was, you know, either baptism by fire or whatever it was. But now that you remember, I do remember that it was a ball in kind of the right center gap that went over the guy's head. And I was like, yeah, it is a slight. And I was like, yeah, like, you think you're going to like play in on me even if they were or weren't?
Right. They were right. I think I'm the one who told you they were playing in to piss you off.
Yeah. You know, I mean, it's something that, you know, I think the older you get, the ability to take kind of strategic plays out of like your ego is a, you know, a huge thing for me. And, you know, dealing with both success and failure, you know, I didn't have, you know, we'll get to Wake Forest later, but, you know, really coming to terms with not being as successful as you want to be is, I think, a really interesting reminder of, you know, we play a hard game. Like, that wasn't my thing, you know. Okay, say I didn't get that guy in. Well, how many runs did I save behind the plate? Or, you know, what was my contribution back there that maybe that, you know, stride ball that I got that struck the kid out, you know, how could I equate it so that I can still make a difference? And that was something that I really took pride in. And, you know, if I can't make that difference at the plate, what difference can I make behind the plate? But yeah, like you said, I now that I remember that, I do remember doing it there. I remember I was battling. I can't believe I was playing in Jupiter. I was throwing down Gatorade, electrolyte candies.
Yeah.
And, like, I was hurting, but I was like, I'm not coming out. Like, I'm playing. And I remember I was like, I can't swing the bat. Like, I'm exhausted. And y'all were like, just go. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, go up there. And I remember we're on the corner field on the game to get up to the championship. And I laid down a drag bunt.
Yep.
And I don't remember if you were the first base coach or who was, but I got to first, and y'all just kind of looked at me and was like,
"Where did that come from?"
Well, you did what you got to do. And so, you know, I think that was just kind of an interesting sort of thing that I still remember. That is like, no, like, I'm not coming out of these games. I know what I have to do. I have to be back there. I have to do whatever it takes just to be behind the plate. And, you know, that's one of the most rewarding wins. I still have those pictures. I have, you know, that team picture with, you know, the, like, I don't even know how much that's worth. Like, what is the signing bonus total of all those guys? You know, so like, that's gosh,
yeah, right.
So just the appreciation of being able to be with those people, and not starstruck by any means because I'm friends with them, but the ability to play with great people, great talent. The entire time I was with the Canes organization was like, I felt indebted almost to the organization to say, no, I need to pull my weight. I'm part of this. I'm no bigger than the program, especially in a program as successful as the Canes have been year over year, month over. I mean, constantly. I'm still seeing stuff with wins that, you know, it literally is a team thing. And what can I do to contribute to that? And so that was my thing, no matter if it was the ball over the center fielder's head or, you know, a little tap or drag ball.
That's right. I love that. I love that. You hammered that pitch, tried to throw your fastball away, elevated it, and you hammered it. But that's the neat thing. That's why I thought that, you know, having you on would be so good because, you know, just that piece alone is gold for kids. I mean, if you're, you know, there's typically one or two guys that are the best on the team. There's other ways to contribute, you know, and even on the Canes or any major league teams anywhere, you know, Wake Forest, for example, you know, there are guys that are the top tier guys, and then there's by default, there's guys that are bottom tier guys, but you still have a role, whether you're, you know, a top tier offensive guy or a bottom tier defensive guy. You still have a role and you still have a job to do. And that was one of the things that always impressed me with you was how you carried yourself, because you did it well. Your teammates loved you. You know, you weren't the guy out there talking trash or starting fights with other teams from Florida or whatever. Love you, LT. But you were, and you need those guys. Don't get me wrong, LT. That's not a slight on you at all. It's just joking about Logan's demeanor. But you always carried yourself well, and you always knew your role. You weren't the guy up there, you weren't launch angle guy trying to bang balls out of the yard. You knew you were a doubles and triples guy, and had to be hit really far to be a triple with your catcher speed. But you're a singles doubles guy. You made contact. You moved guys over. You did all the little things. You were a great teammate. In even those games that you weren't in the game, you were engaged. I'm actually considering putting out now that we're going to get back to baseball, putting something out like 10 or 20 tips for these high school kids, because I think a lot of times they aren't very well taught on what those little things are and all those things that you personified when you were with us, and I know when you were awake as well. So let's talk about Wake a little bit. Go ahead.
I think that, I think you hit it with gold, and I think honestly the growth of social media and the growth of these kind of people always mentioning their commitments and mentioning this, that, and the other. It's easy for players to either get kind of caught up in that or start being comparing themselves to it. I feel like you see people comparing, social media is not reality. It's your best version of everybody. Pictures are going to be edited. Comments are always going to be filtered. Everything is about being your best self. And so when you see highlights, you see people committing, well, they're not showing their low points. They're only showing their high points. And it's really easy to get kind of like in your mind about, oh, well, okay, that guy that I know I'm better than, like, he just got an offer from here. Well, did he get an offer, or did he get invited to a camp that wasn't actually an invite, that was just there's so much behind the scenes that you don't know, and you can't base yourself off of that. And that was something that my dad and my mom really instilled in me, of you control what you can control. That, and the two ones, if I can leave this, if this were to cut out right now, control what you can control, and you never know who's watching. And I think that you never know who's watching leads perfectly into Wake Forest, as you'd say. So,
absolutely. So tell everybody about that. Yeah, tell everybody about how you found Wake, or how Wake found you, and how that all evolved. How was your recruiting process?
So, I think the biggest thing that I kind of gathered from it is that they basically called it, they stealthed me. And I've been kind of out of the recruiting game. I don't know what that looks like anymore, what that means, but basically they had people watching me when I didn't know. And I think the fact that, I got that conversation and I moved forward with that really showed that, I did take in that you never know who's watching to heart. And that's something that you can't just be a dude when there's scouts in the stands. You can't just be a dude, when you're at the field, when you're up at the bat or up at bat. You got to be a guy. You got to be a teammate in the cages. You got to be a guy walking in. I remember the rules about when we walk in, we're either pants or shorts, and we've got shoes on. Very structured. That may have seemed kind of overblown, but no, that was the way the Canes did it, and you did it. Like there was no not doing that. And so that's something that I think people can kind of get lost on stuff, because it's almost cool, I feel like, now, to be kind of the lackadaisical guy that just kind of shows up and dragging his bat behind him, and call me old school, call me whatever, but that's not it. Like you show up and you're trim, you're tight, you're ready to go, like got everything handled. Like that was the stuff that you saw those teams and you're like, oh geez, like here they come,
Yep.
But yes, so Wake, stealthed me, quite honestly. I didn't know that they were watching. They, from the beginning, I'd known I wanted good academics and I wanted good baseball. Something that's always been, pushed into me by my parents was, you never know when your last game could be. Whatever happens, especially as a catcher, if I blow out my knee, there goes my career. My dad got hurt and his career ended, but he had gotten his degree. He basically got hurt, got out of baseball, and had a house and a career right then and there. And so it was seeing that sort of level of, not don't make my mistakes, but here's what I learned and take that was hugely beneficial for me. That, I've seen people just invest so much in, the school they go to because it's the name, or, man, I want to go to a Nike school. But No, mine was like, it has to be the right fit. I know what I want. And did I probably spurn some teams by saying that I wanted, academics came first? Maybe that wasn't high on priority list for people, but no, like it really had to be the right fit for me. So we went and took a trip down to Winston-Salem, and I remember driving through. I was like, this is weird. Like, it doesn't feel like a college town. But turns out we had kind of come from the roundabout direction, which is more residential. And then the field kind of like appears out of nowhere.
Right.
And I remember going there, wow, that's cool. Like, okay, like college is a big deal. Wake does dynamic baseball stuff, and they do some events across the board, but nothing that I had been to. And so took a visit and met with Coach Walter, met with Billy Salento, and got to kind of see everything. And they were mentioning of the facility that was going to be built, but right now at that point we were still in the right field clubhouse. Kind of went and saw campus and saw what it was, and had done my research into Wake Forest. And I remember leaving, we had the kind of the sit down meeting where sat across from the table, and he was like, all right, here's, X, Y, and Z. We kind of took it in, and then we kind of left. And I remember getting in the car, and my mom like turns back from the front seat and goes, okay, that was pretty cool. And so it was a really exciting, So it was a really exciting sort of thing that, okay, like that's how this is supposed to go. And being able to go and really enjoy my time there, I think was big. I remember walking around and was like, this feels like a place that I should be at.
Right.
And that was the real sort of predicating factor of, this is what should happen. And I remember, just Wake being what it is, it's private, it's a little bit more expensive. Money was something that was kind of on the table as kind of a what's it called, a thing to take in. As everybody well knows, full scholarships are basically non-existent. So everything had to make sense, financially. But I remember a couple weeks after, I believe it was August-ish, and I remember walking downstairs, and my mom had set up a couple like banners over our fireplace. And my dad's kind of sitting there, and she looked at me and she's like, so like, we've done some talking, like, it's up to you. Like, where do you want to go? And they knew. And so like I held up the banner and started crying, and I was like, I did it, like all that sort of stuff.
Uh-huh.
And it's pretty cool now, kind of thinking back on that now, like how recent that, or how far away that was. But, I still remember Jeff sent me a congratulations and was like, you know what this means? And I was like, maybe. And he was like, now the real work begins. And I was like, oh yeah. Because as soon as I committed, target on my back immediately. With the Canes, I was one of the later term guys. But in my area, I was still one of the earlier ones. So I remember, the success I'd had freshman and sophomore year. Junior year, I was getting a whole lot more curveballs. I was getting a whole lot more of this, that. I was getting, that came with the ACC guy. And then, that propelled me a little bit more to, work that nth of a bit harder than I already had, because you're not only representing yourself, you're representing the Canes organization, because, I would have the batting gloves, or I'd have the Evo shield on that, was part of the Canes. But then I'm representing Wake Forest, so what does that mean? That all of that kind of comes into play. And then what was pretty cool from a, publicity perspective, I guess you could say, is Daniel Lynch, who's now Arizona Fall League guy with the Royals, a dude. He and I were friends, been friends, still are friends. He was the ace, I was the catcher. And so like everything was like, Freeman duo does this and all that sort of stuff. And so it's like, okay, like I got that kind of taste of being kind of in the public eye. And with that came still kind of the magnification of, you have to carry yourself well regardless. There's no time off. You can't slack. Who knows if there's a reporter waiting to be interviewed and they have video of me warming up before the game and I'm not warming up well. So
it's interesting you say that, because I don't think a lot of kids think about that. I think they, as you mentioned, oh, I'm going to go to a Nike school. We're going to have this gear. And, oh, I like the coaches. They're awesome. They don't consider the academics. And I know for you, that was that was one of the main things. I mean, obviously baseball was there, but it did have to be the right fit academically. but the burden that you carried after committing to Wake, to me, is something that most people don't think about. They just want to hurry up and commit and just have that in their bio of their Instagram or Twitter and be super cool with it. But they don't realize how much work is required after that, because, as you were saying, the work starts then, and going out and is, I've always known that somebody's watching, but is somebody watching now, and are they going to go back to Lake and say, dude, this guy's not that good? You had that burden the whole time, and you carried that burden, and you carried it very well. You and Daniel Lynch were about as good as it got in the state of Virginia, as far as pitcher-catcher combo. Yeah. So with that, did that bring any added pressure to your game? I mean, I know you've always been conscientious of all of the little things, but was there times where you realized that you were putting undue pressure on yourself about it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something that you just kind of go through always is, is it undue? Am I doing enough? Am I doing the right thing? And it's just a balancing act, quite honestly, of what works for you. And so really kind of understanding of kind of what your level of, I don't want to say commitment, but like what works into your schedule. Like, when is it a good time to go throw and hit? When is it a good time to go do all the extra stuff that is outside of it? And everything's going to vary for some people. I may have had to spend more time, taking cuts than I did behind the plate, or maybe I needed to spend more time behind the plate that did that. But, that pressure, I think, is what actually benefits you, because as soon as you got into Wake, like I said, those little things that carrying yourself, the last thing you want to be when you step on foot is known. And I think that's an interesting thing. But not so much famous, as you don't want to be the one that's like the infamous one. All too often I've seen, as I've gone up and been through it, quite honestly, there are, people that come on, and not to say anyone at Wake Forest that I can kind of think of, but, you run into the issue of, is that guy representing us well? Because as soon as you slap that in the bio, you're not only representing the coaching staff, but you're representing your future teammates. And if you get them upset, or if you do something wrong, ooh, that's a tough one to carry, because you can't, you really got to earn your stripes as a freshman.
Yeah, which you did, which I like. You came in quietly. You did your work. You saw increased playing time, as the middle of the season got around. You were hitting the ball well. You had a couple balls leave the yard even, which I was super impressed with.
Yeah.
And then, you go and get hurt, and, that kind of changes things. You had a great career at Wake. There's guys where, as we see them as Canes, where, and you've caught 5 first-rounders, when you're catching them, you're like, that's different. That's a pro guy right there. Like, holy cow, that is a, this, and this happens. He is a pro guy, round 1, day 1. He's a dude. And you have other guys that project more as a college player, and there's nothing wrong with that. You coming out, you were coming out of high school, you were a college player. It's like, he's going to go to college. And if certain things happen, if he gets bigger, stronger, finds, more impact barrels. I mean, I thought you always did a good job of finding barrels, but, you go out there and you drive some balls, you could be a pro guy. Jake Mueller, great teammate of yours, second baseman, outfielder, I think he played some too, I think he hit a milestone. Was it 200 or 300 hits or something like that? I mean, he had a really good college career, and that's, 1% play pro baseball. So, you're in the, let's say, top 5% or top 10% of baseball population. That's pretty darn good. I know when we overall look at it, and the cool thing is you're the first one we've had on CaneCast. It's not a pro baseball player. And I did this on purpose because, the first 45 minutes of us talking has been phenomenal. Total gold. Like, if you're a kid, or if you're a parent, you've gotten to this point, you need to go tap your son on the shoulder that's playing Fortnite and say, listen to what Logan says. Because Logan's gotten to where, people would give their right arm, well, not the right arm because you got to throw it, but their left arm, for example, to go and be able to catch. in the ACC and do it for 4 years and catch a ton of first-round guys, not only with the Canes, but some of the guys you caught there at Wake, pretty darn good. You played for a phenomenal coaching staff there. Wake is now one of the top programs in the country for development and the technology that you guys are using there. The neat thing about you is that your course kind of veered off, and it's really neat because it speaks to your intelligence and everything. Tell everybody what you're doing now. We'll come back and talk a little bit more baseball, but let's let everybody know what you're doing now, because I think this is really cool, and it hits home with me because I'm an entrepreneur and I love the business side of things. So tell everybody what's up now.
Yes. So Logan, as you can kind of see when a name comes up sometimes when I go to talk, but Fan Park. It's something that started out as a class project, but right now I'm no longer Logan Harvey, catcher for the Wake Forest Demon Deacons. I'm Logan Harvey, founder and CEO of Fan Park. And so what Fan Park is it's a parking payment and reservation platform designed specifically for special events. So Americans on average waste 17 hours a year just looking for a place to park, and we're changing that. So, what is that? What does that mean? Really, this kind of comes a lot of entrepreneurship is your why. Why did you do it? Why did this come from? My why is I went to University of Richmond football games with my dad growing up, and he's a planner, very, like we said, very like detailed, minutia sort of stuff. And we'd wake up really early to make sure that we had that parking spot in the gravel lot next to my uncle's so that we could line up our cars, we could have our food, we could have our drink. That's all great, but think of the prep time you have to have. So what we now do is allow people to actually make reservations in advance or right up when they get there and pay through our platform to get a shopping experience of parking. And so you might have heard of Park Mobile, Spot Hero, Parking Panda, these kind of big wigs in the parking industry. They focus primarily on the public side. So when you pull up to a meter, you're going to pull up your Park Mobile app and you're going to pay for your meter. Well, we're bringing that to kind of the everyman or the school, the institution, the baseball complex, the whatever. It's really just kind of this matter of digitizing parking, something that's a static industry. You think about it, when you go somewhere, you pay cash everywhere. Well, what other industry is basically cash only? Not many that you can really think of. So we're bringing that kind of digital form into the 21st century. That's what the hat is. Got all the gear, got everything. But yeah, so it's been quite the journey, being able to trace it back to, I wouldn't be here without Wake Forest. Well, I wouldn't be at Wake Forest without the Canes. I wouldn't be at the Canes without Jack Gerstenmaier. I wouldn't have met Jack Gerstenmaier if I hadn't gone to Freeman. If I hadn't gone to Freeman, it was because of my 6th grade social studies teacher. So being able to track this kind of segue all the way through has been incredible. And it was something I was thinking about before I got on this call of, wow, everything does happen for a reason. Imagine that. So it's been a really, really cool sort of thing that this is what I'm destined to do. And I'm lucky enough to say that I got out of baseball, kind of on my terms. I'm completely happy with what I'm doing now. I have zero regret whatsoever. I'm still love the game, still love being around it. Just my playing days are over. And I think that's a really unique thing that I like to share with people of, no, it ended. It was clean. Of course, I cried when it ended. That was a massive part of my career that was done. And that was a year ago last night, actually. The ACC network was playing our game against NC State. Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
So Brad Debo, another Canes legend, contributed to ruining my career. So
thanks, Brad.
he hit like a 2-run double with 2 outs in the bottom of the 9th or something, of course, but he did the same thing when we were in junior. So I guess it kind of equals out, I guess. But yeah, no. So it's been, it's been a unique road, but it's been a really cool one because of my story. And I think being able to share not just the baseball side, but everybody I think baseball is the end all be all. And so did I. Man, I tell people all the time, I was like, I'm going to go to Wake for 3 years. I'm going to be playing pro ball. Done. Me and Yachty are going to be friends. We're going to be hanging it up with the best of them. That just wasn't my road, and it wasn't meant to be. And, coming to terms with that was it was hard, obviously, but now it was like, you know what, this is the best decision for me. This is why I did it. And, you know, being able to have that comfort and that confidence and that little bit of regret not be there, I think is huge. Something that that really pushed me is my coach, Joey Hammond at Wake Forest, who I owe everything to. BP guy. He was the first base coach, you know, just really outstanding. He was a former pro, all this sort of stuff. And he was a dude in the Phillies organization. And everything that they kind of pushed into us was, he was like, man, I got done. He said, I couldn't be happier. He was like, I've got a great wife. I've got great kids. I love what I'm doing now. He said, and I don't regret anything about my career. And as soon as I heard that, that kind of like struck a chord, even my freshman year. And I think that is hugely important. And it really kind of separated it with me. And, you know, Joe and I have always messed with each other, but, you know, that was something that I really went up to him and I said, thank you for that. Like that made complete sense. I don't regret a single thing. There's not one thing that I would do different in the weight room, in sprints, in drills, anything like that, that comes to mind of, you know, even something as small as like skipping reps. Like, you know, I made it a point never to do that because imagine how I feel now. Like, God, like, what if that one rep had, you know, maybe hit that home run in front of the, I don't have that. And I think that part of is hugely, I'm extremely lucky and extremely appreciative that I can have a clean break with baseball, be done with it, but still being in a successful part of my life and not be looking back and being that guy that's like, oh, back in my day, I would have made it, but my knee did this, or, you know, you do that.
Yeah, a lot of those guys out there. You know, you bring up so many great points. And the one thing I want to make sure that we, you know, put a spotlight on is what you said about not having any regrets. You know, whether people realize it or not, you know, a lot of the young kids, and again, when you were 15, 16 years old, you're talking about your plan, or 17 years old, you're talking about your plan, going to Wake for 3 years, and then, you know, going to play pro baseball, and you and Yachty hanging out and stuff like that. You know, that's how everybody thinks. You know, that's your teenage innocence or naivete or whatever you want to call it. But reality comes in, and there's a different plan out there, right? So, you know, you went from ACC catcher, you know, which is super, I mean, it's super impressive, to now to being a CEO, and a lot of, you know, I kind of had the same route. I was an okay college player, and that was it, probably subpar. But, you know, finished my last game, and it's like, all right, you know, what am I going to do? I got into business, and, you know, kept my toe in baseball and coached, and you know, did a little bit with, coached a little bit over Virginia Wesleyan, actually coached softball there too with a buddy of mine. So I'm proud to say my buddy Brandon Elliott, the guy that I'm coached with, is a 2-time national champion in softball. So I had a little bit to do with that, hopefully. But, you know, the cool part is as you get into business, you're taking a lot of those things that you learned, you know, from your lessons that your dad taught you growing up, to all the lessons you've learned in baseball, and applying them to business. And, you know, being a catcher and seeing all the angles and being responsible, I can't think of a better role for you than a CEO, because you are the head cook and bottle washer for everything that FanPark does. You know, let's go back a little bit. Let's talk about, you said this was a class project. Tell me a little bit about how it evolved from there. I mean, because obviously it was an incubator at Wake that got you to where you were. You know, how did this evolve, and how did this grow from being a little egg and an idea to a paper to a project in class to an actual business?
Yeah. So Keegan Marinpo was a third base and outfielder for Wake Forest. Just dude had some of the craziest pop I think I've ever been around. Great guy, still friends with him, all that sort of stuff. He's actually with a Ballingy group. He's doing some work with them, so he's still in the baseball world. But he was in an entrepreneurship class, and he's like, it's cool class projects. Like, it's a great minor. Like, just look into it. Because I didn't know what I was minoring in. I didn't even know what I was majoring in. And so I took this class with Greg Poole. And basically the scope of the kind of project across the board was carry around a notebook that, you know, you just write problems that you deal with, that find a solution for it, find whatever. And, you know, what kept happening was Drew Friedman, who was a shortstop at Wake for a little bit, was sitting next to me in class, and he was constantly late. And I was like, it's 11 o'clock. Like, what is going on? And he was like, I can't find parking. I can't find a place to park. And I was like, interesting. So I kind of craft this whole idea, and I was like, what if you could bring like reservations to campus? Like, how cool would that be? You wake up, you know you have class in this building, you can make a reservation there. And so I kind of thought about it a little bit more, talked with my dad, did a little bit of market research, kind of seeing what was out there. Nothing was really kind of hitting that niche. So I brought it to my professor, and I was like, I don't want to do this for a class project because I don't want anybody to take it. And he's like, yeah, he said, best ideas aren't put out publicly. He said, you have nothing to gain from that. He said, as long as you do the project part, and he was like, you're going to be fine. Do something else. So I think we partnered up, and I did like a wedding dress rental service that another girl in the class came up with. So Fan Park then kind of got from there to, okay, well, this may have legs. And so then part of that was moving into Startup Lab, which is, like you said, an incubator that basically you turn idea from business in a semester. So you have to run some kind of trials first, and that was customer research, market research, gathering data of what's out there. And it's something that you do it once for that because that's kind of required, but it never stops. You still have to talk to people, you still have to ask the right sort of questions, and it can't just be like, hi, do you want something to make parking better? Well, yeah, but you have to ask questions like, where do you go on a regular basis? Like, what stops you from going to a Wake Forest football game? Finding those sorts of kind of inner sort of things is hugely important, kind of the communication skills, that there's so much kind of underlying meaning to stuff. And so being able to do that, then I kind of got into Startup Lab, which then eventually actually created the app. We got a team developed on it. We got the name. It was originally Spark. It became Fan Park. Logo, articles of operations agreement, because we're an LLC. Did all this sort of stuff, and was pretty cool that we basically launched the app in August of 2018 and produced revenue in September of 2018, like right off the bat. And kind of going through it, I was like, oh, that's how it's done. Like, duh. But then the more that I got around people, I was like, oh, that's kind of a unique situation. Most times it's what's called an MVP, a minimum viable product of, sometimes you miss your mark on it. And a lot of times you do. And then you have to go back to the drawing board and tweak and stuff like that. But for us to launch an app as an MVP and immediately have people use it and use it aggressively was a pretty cool sort of thing. So what was interesting, Clemson came that first year, and we were at Last Resort, which is a bar around here, and that's where they were doing parking. Somehow, some way, to this day, I have no idea how it happened, but a Clemson radio show heard about our app, told their fan base to use it so they could reserve their parking. We had 45 spaces gone in, I think, like a day. It was incredible. And I was like, we've been doing okay, but like, where was this coming from? Turns out it was that radio show, and this place was packed with Clemson fans. So then it was like, okay, well, that's pretty cool traction. This past October, we were the exclusive VIP parking provider for the Dixie Classic Fair, which is now the Carolina Classic Fair, second largest state fair in North Carolina. So we created an entirely new revenue stream for them. We had some deals up with some minor league groups in the area to do it so that they would do VIP parking. And now kind of with the COVID and coronavirus going on right now, we've shifted our messaging a little bit that, hey, this is just contactless parking. From the beginning, all payment was done through our app. Everything was done through the app. You show up, you show a code, and you pull right in. So what was originally a convenience is now kind of the requirement. And so now that's how we're kind of pushing out our messaging to say that, look, like, here's a way to, improve not only the safety of your staff and, fans, that's most important, but you're improving the efficiency of it. Because no longer are people like, okay, I don't have cash. Do you have change for a 100, whatever it is? You show your code. Okay, great, Rob, pull right in. Done. And that's what's really cool about what we do. And so being able to shift that messaging that, basically I went and created a new website in the midst of all this that was shifted more of that messaging. And that's not to say that our model has changed. It's just how it's portrayed.
Absolutely.
And so those kind of communication strategies, all that sort of stuff of being able to kind of get punched in the gut of, how do you deal with a pandemic? Well, here's our way of dealing with it. Here's our way of helping. And I think, something I did, I was doing a interview for my old elementary schools, Catholic school, and they said, well, how does, kind of your faith and your upbringing correlate to that? And I said, well, being a good person and being a good business person can align, and one can equal the next, and you don't need to take one or the other. And I think sometimes that gets lost on people of kind of this aggressive sort of business of people taking advantage of stuff of, no, here's my way of helping. This is my solution to a problem that exists. It's a way of keeping people safe, and just being a good person can equate to being a good business person. And so being able to see that kind of thing, that it's been really cool to see kind of the application of it. I mean, we've done football games, basketball games, the state fair, we've done baseball games. It can be used anywhere, anytime. Quite honestly, I kind of joke about it, but because it's free to use for parking providers. So these major places that we're reaching out to, it's not a monetary investment for them. It's just a little bit of a time and effort. But what it does is that, it can be used anywhere. So if you really want to, charge your in-laws to park in your driveway for the barbecue, you can do that. It's completely, you just kind of sign up with us. We get the, reservation the verification notification that somebody wants to be a member. We give them the okay, make sure that it is their property that they're trying to monetize, and you're free to go. So it's a very easy, fast, efficient sort of thing that we're doing. And that's kind of, where we're at right now.
That's awesome. That's a great idea. I mean, I know, anytime, we go somewhere, we were out in Arizona, I think 2 years ago. I went with 3 years ago, maybe, with my American team, and Eric Milton, who pitched with the Twins and the Reds and the Yankees and the Dodgers. He was with us and coaching with me, and we went to a Diamondbacks game, and it was just agonizing. I remember us driving around the parking lot trying to find a place to park. It really was just agonizing. And, I listening to you talk, that was one of the many episodes that, we're struggling to find parking. So, Fan Park would be an obvious solution for a lot of events, college, pro, baseball, football, any sporting events, any major event like that. It's really neat. And to hear how you pivoted, talking to you and talking to Asher and stuff like that, and how his business has pivoted. He's going to be on, I think, next week or week after, because he's working on some big pivot projects. I don't know how, do you guys talk often? Do you talk to him about his business?
Honestly, we got closer, I think, as this came about. Andrew Asher, pitcher, I was a catcher, so obviously we had that relationship. And then it was kind of in the middle of Davidson came to play at Wake Forest for a midweek, and he's on bucket, and I'm kind of warming up, kind of do you talk to the other team? Do you not? I was like, it's Asher. So I'm acting like I'm warming up, and I was like, yeah, what's up? Like, how's school been? And he's like, cool, like kind of doing this random thing with drones. And I was like, what? He goes, yeah, like kind of started this company. And I was like, no, you didn't. And so I was like, well, I started a company too. And so we kind of look at each other and like, wait, like it was kind of the Step Brothers thing where it's like, did we just become best friends? Like that sort of thing. Of like, what are the odds that two guys from this like top-notch baseball organization are now running companies? And full transparency, Asher's, I think his traction, he's been at Y Combinator, and I won't take his fire by any means, but he's a little bit farther along than I am just in his industry. Being able to bounce that off of each other. We texted 2 days ago because I was like, I want some updates. But establishing that friendship of, not just the baseball, but now we have this sort of thing that it's just really cool to have other people doing what it is, because I run kind of a non-conventional route. I was a college athlete, so I didn't really have that college experience that some people always like, oh, my frat brothers and stuff like that.
Right.
Non-traditional there. I was never, I was gone all the time for Canes tournaments, non-traditional. Now non-traditional, but it only makes sense that of course I am. So it's been really, really cool to see that kind of parallel between us as well.
That's really cool. That's good to hear, because I know, we have to schedule it around a big presentation that he has next week, and it's I'm excited for him, hoping it works out. You at Fan Park, I know we've talked, how I feel and how, quite a few other people have felt that it can help youth sports. Some of these places that we travel, they charge for parking. They they charge for parking. And, I think, even at the high school level, high school football and things like that, I know some football places that I've seen and been to, they'll either charge for parking or well, I've seen a couple that charge for parking. So, I think that model works there too. How do you think, or are you getting involved with youth sports at all? Travel baseball, I know at Lake Point they charge for parking, and it's kind of a sore subject because it is a thorn. It's a thorn in the side, but B, it's, pulling into the complex and having to reach into your pocket and pull out $5 or whatever it is. It is a sore spot. And I would think that being able to do it on an app where you can reserve that spot, I would think that would make it a little bit more palatable. It make it a little bit more organized. Are you doing anything with any youth sports? Is there an opportunity there for you to grow?
There's absolutely an opportunity. And I think it's a lot of times what separates wantrepreneurs from entrepreneurs is, putting the idea into action. And I think the execution is something that has been, obviously paramount to not just business, but I think life in general. Is you can say all you want. I can tell you all the millions of ideas we have, but it really comes down to our execution of this. But to put it into perspective, yeah, absolutely. Youth sports where you're going into these places that, how cool would it be if you get your schedule that's released on, middle of the week, and then it's like click to get your parking for the weekend. And if you're going to be at, Perfect Game or Lake Point or whatever on, Saturday, but then you're at Kennesaw Mountain, where I remember playing all the time, you may not need it there. You can sort of kind of customize your thing, and it's one less thing to worry about. And then in the high school side of, it doesn't need to be done just where, payment is done, because a lot of times places, like you said, there is kind of a little bit of a difference between some places that do and some places that don't. But adding in this VIP feature, that's part of our old messaging, I say, but still part of our system of, maybe that front line of parking lots is, brought on by the booster club, or it goes towards the band, or it goes towards whatever, that these schools, these places can now create another potential revenue opportunity that rather than just getting a donation, the donators get something in return. So, imagine you're going to watch what your nephew's Gavin, right?
Austin. Actually, Gavin's in college, but Austin is the catcher.
Okay. So yeah. So say you're going, you go into one of his high school games or something like that, and it's going to be the PAC state championship, and it's saying, hey, a parking space right up in front is, $10, and money goes to the, the booster club or any sort of thing like that. Because in our system, any bank account can be attached to a profile. So
right.
Not just does it become kind of a money grab, which has a bad connotation to it, but there's ways that this can be done and benefit, in kind of a donation standpoint, that you get kind of a trade-off. I remember my school, where this kind of came from, is my school used to do something where you could almost do a raffle for a couch to sit on the sideline. I don't know how that was. I mean, it's high school. I don't know how legal that is, but basically on the 45-yard line was a couch, and you had a cooler with soda and drinks and stuff like that. You raffled to sit right there and basically watch the game from the sideline. And so
yell at the coach.
if people are willing to pay for something like that,
absolutely.
Like I said, the opportunities of how this can be used are kind of endless. And now it's just a point of getting in touch with people, telling them what we can offer and giving them that sort of quick, this is Fan Park, this is what it does, this is how it can help, done, your elevator pitch.
The interesting part of all of this, Logan, is how well you've adjusted to all of your situations. You had a great 4-year career. You pivoted very quickly, into a professional career that's outside of baseball. And you're going down the path of your entrepreneurship, and then COVID-19 hits and you pivot very quickly, to change your messaging, which is huge. I mean, that's marketing. That's right. You want to draw the attention. Matter of fact, you call it contactless parking. I call what I do contactless mortgage. So I don't do any more face-to-face, meetings. We do it over Zoom, or, they can submit all their documents online without us having to touch them. So, there's a lot of parallels there, and it's interesting to watch, your development over the years, because, thinking back to when I first met you as a 15-year-old kid, I knew, you could tell, and just like Dan did with offering you a spot without ever having, you're getting a ball out of the infield, we know there's something there, right? We knew there was something, just the way you carried yourself, the way you approached the game, the way you, you approach your job, which, you were 15 years old, baseball became a job. You get into college and that's a job. I mean, you're working, at it more than most people work at a part-time job or a full-time job sometimes. But you put in all of this time, and the neat thing is that you're agile and you're nimble, both, physically, but also mentally, to be able to make those moves. And it's super impressive, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on. I think your message throughout your baseball career has been super important and very relevant to kids in our organization or kids outside of our organization, kids that are trying to get recruited. Somebody's always watching. 100% true. We tell people that all the time. Not as many kids take it to heart. You always did.
Yeah.
You took all of that to heart, and granted, you probably heard it thousands of times from your parents, but it was true, and that's what got you to Wake. You talk about the chain of events that have gotten you to where you are today. It's very cool to see that you can tie those events and you can appreciate those events. Mm-hmm. You've done an absolutely amazing job. So what is next with Fan Park? I mean, obviously we're going to get through this at some point. I don't think that things never, and just so things never return to normal. Yeah, I don't know that's calling me, but they can wait. Things never return to normal. Things never return to how they were. This is going to impact us. Just looking at history, this is going to impact us, going to change the way that we do things. It's changed the things with my business. What kind of things are in line for Fan Park coming up? I mean, I don't want you to give away the farm because I know there's competition watching, but there's always somebody watching. Yeah. But what's next for Fan Park? What are you doing to help grow the revenue? What are you doing to grow the business? What's next?
Yeah, so we've looked into, parking is parking. It's not the little phrase I use. It's not cool. It's not sexy. It's not cool. It's not sexy, but it's what it gives you access to. And so it's something that's kind of a foregone conclusion with people. But what we've really been exploring is how can we increase what's being done in that parking lot? And so, naturally don't want to give away too much, but we're exploring how can parking not just be the revenue stream. There's, it's kind of the standard of where else can things come from? What else can we do to improve the fan experience? Fan Park is in our name. Like it's about fans. It's about people. We're all a fan of something. That's another little one-liner. What can we do that is bringing kind of this experience, maybe, from the stadium kind of elsewhere. But it's just kind of finding, like you said, being able to shift and, turn and being aware of what the CDC is saying with guidelines of, okay, once contactless came out, we kind of sat down and we were like, well, we already do that. We don't need to change anything. We don't need to add any feature. It's already baked in. Like the way that our system works is already done. And so we have this kind of platform that is, in its infancy in the tech world of, we've been doing this for right about 2 years now, but we have this platform of reservation and payment processing. Beyond that, who knows? And that's the kind of exciting part of, that's also the dangerous part of, I'm laying awake in bed sometimes. And I'm like, God, what if we did this? Or what if we did that? And, my dad, my business partner is like, all right, let's relax a little bit. Like, we got to figure out what's realistic. But being able to kind of toe that line between kind of the usual way of doing things and then taking that leap of that's so out of the blue. I read Shoe Dog, the Phil Knight book about what he was doing with Nike and being able to see that you can think out of the box and stuff can work out. That's a really wild thing. who would have thought that I'd be in this position now? No telling where I'm going to be in 6 months, where I'm going to be in a year. Like, I want to be on the cover of Forbes. My story is going to be from D1 to, top 100, whatever, 30 under 30, all these sort of things that, that's a personal goal of, I don't know what it's like. I don't want to say that. There is no not succeeding. That doesn't occur to me. And I think that's something that I developed over time, of understanding that you can get, punched in the gut. Like, go look at my stats. My junior and senior year were not the best, at, stats for, hitters, but being able to take those lessons of, well, you still got to go up to the plate. There is no, you can't just cover up into a shell and crawl in a ball and leave. You got to bounce back somehow, some way. That is what's hugely important, of being able to have that mindset that now looking back on it, oh, that's what that was. That's not the normal way of thinking. There is no, it's only up from here. There has to be a way to get to that next level, whatever that level is. And so I wish I could give you a roadmap of X, Y, and Z, but I don't think nobody
that
really
was
has
the right.
that.
That's the right answer, because one of the things that and we don't talk about that much on the CaneCast show, because it's, again, you're the first professional, business professional that we've had on. But having been in, sales and entrepreneurship, starting companies and stuff like that, I look for athletes. I look for guys like you, and girls, because they have that, I'm not losing. You're just not going to beat me. I'm not going to fail. I could be that, you might beat me on a particular deal, but I'm going to end up winning that overall battle on that war, because that's just what I do. I'm the guy or girl that got up at 5:30 in the morning when you were sleeping in, so that I could go get my morning lift in.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm the one who didn't miss any reps, over my career, because I knew I didn't want to be the guy that looked back and said, well, maybe if I did that, I could have gotten, this. That's the reason why, me personally, as a hiring manager, as a sales leader, I look for athletes. Some aren't necessarily geared toward sales. You are, obviously, your mindset is open, but there's some, even on the operations side, I look for athletes, because the sacrifice that you've made over your life to get to a particular goal is extraordinary. You could have been hanging out with your buddies in high school, not working, not getting your extra work done. You could have been in a fraternity in college and not dedicated as much time to baseball, and, not made all the sacrifices, but you did. And if it comes down to the success of what you're doing versus going and screwing off, I know you're going to be the person that's going to say, no, this is my priority. This is the sacrifice I need to make. I've done it over my life, and I see the results that it gets me, not only financially, but, just in leading people, getting them to the point of doing more than they thought they could do. That's really why I stay in coaching, is because I like the teaching aspect of it. I like the getting guys to their goals. You have a very definitive goal when we first met. You wanted to go play in a Division I school, a high academic school. That's why I coached. That's why a lot of us coach. It's not because I make a ton of money doing this. I make decent money in my real job and in my contactless mortgage job, which I thoroughly enjoy. But it's really, you're helping you get to where you wanted to be is huge for me. And I fully believe that as this grows, as Fan Park grows, you're going to be the same type of leader. You're going to bring people into your organization, and realistically, they're going to get in at the ground floor, and they're going to be able to share in that success as Fan Park grows and becomes a household name. That's the beauty of being a leader in business, is that, you have the ability to impact so many people, not just with your product and service, but the people that are around you. Even you and Ash are going back and forth. Those things are vital for learning about leadership and learning about, how to develop your product and your services to increase and to make them more successful. It's been very neat. This has been actually more enlightening than I even thought it was. Yeah. So tell me about maybe some of the guys that are involved with your team that you have going on there at Fan Park, and also tell us about some of those successes you've had with some of the pitch contests and stuff like that.
So the pitch contest is an interesting one. First, I'll kind of touch on that. That's the perfect example of you never know who's watching. Pitch competitions now are kind of like the game days of old. Everything of, the day-to-day is kind of your practices, your scrimmages, your whatever. You can go run throughs of sales calls and stuff like that. But pitch competitions, those are your state championships, your ACC tournaments, because you never know who's in the audience. All it literally takes is kind of one connection, and then it explodes. So, I just recently did one, my first Zoom pitch a couple weeks ago. And that was an interesting one because, talking to people and being in front of people is vastly different than speaking to a webcam, and being able to show the emotion and show the, what's it called? Kind of that human interaction that I feel like is tougher in a non-human environment. But I was lucky enough to win a 2-minute pitch competition hosted by Launch Greensboro, which is the Greensboro Chamber of Commerce and specifically the entrepreneurship arm. So won a nice cash prize there. And having video of that is really, really cool because I was actually telling a group, you video your swing, you video your pitching mechanics, you video whatever. Well, I have video of my pitch for my, my speaking pitch. And now I can go back and look at that and say, God, like, look at what I've done. Look at how much better I've gotten, or look at what I did well. So being able to have that has been really great. And then beyond that, that was really the only competition. The other ones are generally just kind of showcases where you just kind of go out and talk. And I've made some incredible connections there, ones that you never thought would, because people will just, especially in the entrepreneurship world, you'd be surprised at how big some people are, and you have no idea that they even exist. Perfect example, I'm in a place here called Winston Starts. And so Winston Starts is a startup kind of incubator and accelerator mixed into one. So it's a little bit of a co-working space. You get mentorship, you get all this sort of stuff. Without divulging too much about him, but basically a super high level video game designer that has worked on some pretty big time projects, lives in Winston and is in there like every day. And you had no idea. Like, he came up and he's like, oh, you've played so-and-so? Yeah. What about this? Yeah. This? Yeah, of course. He's like, I did that. And I was like,
that's my game.
Yeah. So seeing that sort of thing, that puts into perspective of, these kind of everyman that you walk around, who knows who it is. Like, I've met some VCs, venture capitalists, a woman from, she's got an unreal resume from Atlanta, Georgia that was up in Winston. And she thought I was the sound guy because I was the one working on the presentation actually. And it turns out, really what it was is it was called an investor forum. And so I, being the younger one in the cohort of companies, I was like, yeah, I'll help out with the sound and the lights and all that sort of stuff. So I'm sitting behind the stage, basically clicking through everybody's slides for them, making sure the mics work and all that sort of stuff. And I met her in that context because I was like, here's your mic. When you go up and speak, here's this, here's your clicker. And then I was like the fourth one to go and like nailed my pitch. And she came up to me and she goes, well, you didn't say you ran a company. And I was like, yeah, like, I just do some sound when people need it too. And so kind of that, like, I think that servant attitude a little bit, that is something that we've kind of, I've learned is the servant leader. So not the guy that's just kind of out in front as the figurehead, but the one actually doing stuff is something that I really take pride in. And so being the sound guy and then meeting this unbelievable woman that had all of these accolades and all of this success that then connected me with all of these people down in Atlanta, like, perfect example of you never know who's watching. And just those competitions is who's in the stands, who's in the audience, exact same thing. And so being, we played on one of the biggest stages of any person ever. I was on ESPN as a sophomore playing, against Florida, the eventual national championships of game 3 of a super regional, and I was behind the plate.
Right.
How many people get to say that, have that sort of, experience, that then obviously compares down the road to, what's it called, to life and to business. And then kind of from the mentor side, mentors is huge. Mentors are, the lifeblood of the entrepreneur. And it's been great because an interesting thing that you've touched on a little bit, not to toot my own horn, but you've talked about the connections that we've had between coach and player. I can't even think of a time that I like barked at a coach or there was any sort of back and forth. And so that lended itself to one of my, things being coachability. And that actually showed up on my kind of assessment as a founder in Winston Starts, and kind of one of our check-ins was, supreme coachability. And that's something that, like I mentioned before with the succeeding and failure, there is no other option. I don't know everything. I was not the Mike Trout of the Canes. I'm not the Mike Trout of entrepreneurship, but there are people that can contribute to you. And so being able to take any sort of experience as a learning experience, I think, is massively important in business and in life and in whatever, because you never know what little thing of information somebody that can bring that you're like, oh, well, I thought I knew that, but that makes more sense than what I thought. And so having, Ron Wellman, who's the former athletic director of Wake Forest, served as one of my mentors, is incredible. He and I met when I was on the team at, certain stuff like that. And, having somebody like him with the accolades that he has, the background, the resume, people that want to join me, I've had really great success in having people want to work with me. And I owe a lot of that to how I've carried myself when they aren't around, and being open to be that coachable founder, that one that will actually take in stuff and be, on top of communication and really push things forward, and not be aggressive with ask, and not, doing stuff that is out of line, but really being able to understand the power dynamic that is inherently there, that these people are above you, whether it's age, whether it's experience, whether it's whatever. People know more than you, and not having the ego to say that, like, they don't know parking. Well, okay, they don't know parking. I consider myself an expert in parking, but I'm not an expert in everything else. And so that's where those benefits can kind of come from. And so you start to see that what I do really well is public speaking. That's one of my things that I do. You said, I mentioned it, I may not need as much mentorship there, but when I get it, one of the big things that I got was a woman, Jen Hensel, who I owe a lot to in my kind of pitch practice, is she said, smile. Like, when you talk, you're monotone, but when you smile and you have this sort of energy, you present well, you pitch well, and you show that passion that I really do have about it. And so something as little as that is stuck with me this whole way through. And so you can learn anything from everyone. And I think that is hugely important. And, especially in baseball, you're going to have coaches telling you 19 different things. That's the nature of it. That's always going to be the thing. The amount of people that will come up to me and be like, hey, you know what you should do with Fan Park? I'm like, yeah, what? That's a getting the people are always going to want to put in their 2 cents, whether it's coaching, whether it's entrepreneurship, whether it's life. Somebody's always going to want to tell you something, and being, first off, receptive enough to actually take that in graciously, but then second off, having the confidence, the acumen, the knowledge, the understanding that I still know what I do best and what I can do better. And so whether it's, well, I know my swing, or I know how to receive this, or I know, that I need to throw this way down to second base, even though somebody's telling me this, it's a balancing act. And so that has served me all the way through. And I think that kind of coachability and mentorship, your coach and your mentor, exact same thing, and that's what sports has been great for.
Absolutely. I think that's been, I know I've learned a lot, and I think we talked off camera. I equate a lot of, my growth and I talked about it in the beginning, but a lot of my growth as a professional, as a business professional, to some of the things, similar things that you've endured and that you've gone through as an athlete, that I went through as an athlete. Man, this has been absolutely incredibly action-packed with just awesome stuff. And the wonderful thing is in listening to you, kids should be, I know I have a couple of pages of notes. These kids that are watching this and parents that are watching it should be doing the same thing, because we all have the dream that we're going to play baseball. I did, felt I was going to stay in it forever, as a player, as did you. And, again, you pivoted and you've given out so much incredible knowledge. I mean, you're coming from a guy who caught in the ACC. I think we need to have another episode with you on, after we get Ash. I think what we'll probably do is, after we get Asher on, we'll probably have one with you two on, because I think it'd be good for you guys to bounce stuff off you or bounce stuff off each other, and do it on camera. But dude, this has been awesome. You are, again, you're everything I thought you'd be when you were 15. You're a great person, and I knew that as soon as I met your dad, and your mom. Your mom's awesome, by the way. But as soon as I met them, I knew, I'd never have any problems with you. Not from you, your family, anybody. But I also knew that you'd go to play somewhere. You'd have a phenomenal 4-year career. I knew you'd come out of it a much better individual, and I didn't think you'd be running a business, but holy cow, it's super cool, man. I think by watching this, people can see what sort of influence you are, not only on your direct team, but on everybody around you. You act as if somebody is always watching you, which means you're always doing the right things. I know we called you dad because you looked like you're 30 years old, but also in the way you carried yourself. You did carry yourself as somebody who was a guardian and a caretaker of your teammates. I can't say enough great things about you, Logan, but I've known you for a long time. I think, the people that have watched this, hopefully they get a sense of you, and not only, what you brought to us and helped make us better as people, but also how awesome of a person you are. You're the type of guy, I can't wait until you're, 30, 40 years old. And I mean, I didn't even know you look like it, but even when you're 30, 40 years old, we can have some great conversations. And I mentioned it to Bo and Logan and a couple of other guys of how, we can't be friends when you play for us. But now I consider you a friend. I like hearing about what's going on with Fan Park, what's going on with your life, how you're evolving, and how you're developing and becoming even better, a better version of yourself. But man, I'm super excited to have had you on today. You are an absolute stud of studs. You're a first-round draft pick in my book. You're a dude. I tell you what, the funny thing is, and I mean this sincerely, we're in the process of moving offices. I coached you at 15 and 16, and then you went and played for Jeff. And that year that you guys went to the Met Ball Classic, and I went with Jeff, I still have that picture of you, me, and Stevie. I have that on my wall because you guys, because you guys there was a connection there. You guys, and I try to connect with all my players. But the way that you guys, I remember the way that you guys lit up when you saw me, the way that you guys, we joked with each other about everything. And right next to it is a picture of Cody because it was his last start. You guys are special, and you're doing special things. And I really appreciate you, as a player, and now as a friend, because you're really an awesome person. So thank you so much for spending time with us today, dude.
I mean, I think that goes two ways. Just in closing, I owe so much to the Canes organization. I owe so much to you and to Dan and to Jeff and to Mike and to Batch and to, Lowry and to, everybody. Like, you come across, it's rare that you actually have a developmental system like the Canes, that you actually get great people all the way through that. How much does that happen? And, I think my thing that I can kind of leave these people with, that, whoever's watching, of, I'm a normal guy. Like, I'm 23. I'm just out of this. I want to make myself available and pass this on to anybody who reaches out, quite honestly. if, I'll put, I'm sure you have the ways of putting my email, put my phone number, put whatever it was there. I'm on Instagram, just look up Logan Harvey. There can't be that many of me, but I've had, guys coming up actually DM me and ask me about stuff at Wake Forest because of what I'm doing in business, and been able to kind of serve as a little bit of a guardian. Like you say, I was helping a woman that saw my, my pitch and was like, I'm interested in entrepreneurship. What's the next step? And I was on a phone call with her telling her, but I really want to stress that, I feel like a lot of people say this just as ear service, but my way, Fan Park is the vehicle of my success, but it's the back end to that is really helping people and the impact that I can make on others. And really, truly, reach out to me, call me, text me. Nothing's too little, nothing's too small. Whether you're a dad, a mom, a kid, a brother, sister, reach out to me. Seriously, like, I want to talk to people. I love doing it because that gives me that kind of benefit, like beneficial. Excuse me.
Absolutely.
It makes me that's what I'm doing. If I forget who said it, but leave the world better than you found it. And if I can make an impact on more and more people, I did it in the baseball world. I made, pitchers probably better because I was back there. Did it in the business world, and I want to do it in the life world too. Reach out to me, call me, text me, email. I'll answer it. LinkedIn. Trying to think of what else I'm on. Anything. Shoot me a text,
TikTok.
call.
Are you on TikTok?
I am, but not as active. I watch. TikTok is not conducive to parking just yet. I'm still thinking of how I can do that.
Right.
Yeah. Get people to reach out to me, shoot me a call, anything. I really want to talk with you. I love hearing about other people's stuff that they go through because, like I said, I can learn anything from everybody.
Awesome. Dude, you're a dude, and we will definitely have you back on. Thanks a lot, Logan. Appreciate you being on today.
Thank you all for having me.
All right, bros. See you.
Wow, what an awesome episode. Thank you so much for joining us today. Big shout out to Logan for being with us. Give him a follow on social media at Logan_Harvey15. You can check out his company at fanparkapp.com or on socials at the FanPark app. If you enjoyed this episode, like, comment, subscribe, review, and share. Give us a follow on social media at Canecast Show. You can reach out to me directly on social media channels at Rob Younce, or email me directly at robyounce@gmail.com. I welcome your feedback as we look to improve this show every single time out. So until our next episode, stay safe, wash your hands, and keep smiling because baseball's right around the corner.